So for this session, we have Mark Milton with Clementine Raphel. So I want you all to welcome all of you to this first session of this live event. I want to introduce you firstly, Clementine Raphel, that she's a youth ambassador for Education for Peace Foundation. She has been working for 5 years with Education for Peace now. She has decided to dedicate her professional and personal path to advocate self-awareness in education for the future generation. Intrigued on how to make a change in the educational system to give youth the tools that schools usually doesn't teach, such as dealing with emotion and relationships, she started her path. In parallel, she has been studying science of education in Geneva University and finishing a teacher training in Kundalini Yoga. She is passionate about all that has to do with the exploration and liberation of the self in its multiple dimensions: physical, emotional, relational, energetical, and spiritual. And with Clementine, we will have Mark Anthony Milton, who is the founder and director of the Swiss-based foundation Education for Peace, A for Peace. Created in 2002, the foundation works internationally to promote the integration of skills in self-awareness, listening, and mastery of emotions into the educational curriculum of youth, including sports education. His earlier experience, first as a volunteer and then as director of an organization that operates hotlines for emotional support and suicide prevention, and his successful path as a business consultant specializing in communication and organizational development have greatly contributed to the work of Education for Peace. From 2001 to 2010, Mark was chairman of the International Federation of Telephone Emergency Services, with 600 centers in 28 countries. He initiated many activities to promote listening skills, as well as the first International Congress on the theme of emotional health in 2007, co-sponsored by the World Health Organization. In 2008, he was part of the team which initiated the Spirit of Humanity Forum, which is held every 2 years in Iceland. He has led the Education for Peace groundbreaking work with international and national football federations to officially introduce self-awareness and attitude on the fifth skill, teaching listening skills and empathetic communication that paved the way for resilience and relational consciousness. He served as an expert on the above topics for national and international organizations in all sports. Mark is the co-author of the books Master of Your Emotion Football, A Path to Self-Awareness and Peacefulness. So welcome, Mark and Clementine. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Really nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, yes.
So we're really glad to be the first one starting this beautiful event. And yeah, we are very grateful for having this beautiful opportunity. And we will just start by presenting ourselves. And I will let you go, Mark, just sharing about your path and your relationship to listening and silence, which is the main topic of today.
Yeah, thank you, Clementine. Thank you. Yeah, we're really honored to be part of this beautiful event, and to have the honor to start this all together. I think you're going to go into 3 amazing days where so much resources, so much life experience is going to be shared and offered to all of you, and I wish you really a wonderful time. So yeah, we're going to first present ourselves a little bit with Clementine, and then we're going to offer you actually a live experience, And it's actually something quite unique that it's going to be the first time for us that we're going to be offering it like this publicly. So as Benedetta, and thank you so much for your presentation, Benedetta, mentioned, I've been working actually for many years now, nearly 30 years, in the field of listening. And since I was a kid, actually a teenager, I was passionate by adults who could listen. I could really see that some adults were listening to people and some were not. And one of the things quite easy to observe was some people tend to interrupt quite quickly people. And some, when they're interrupted, it's okay. They just stop speaking and they listen. And I really appreciated that way of being. And when I was 30, I was really fortunate to become a listener in a suicide prevention hotline. So there's suicide prevention hotlines all over the world, practically in every country of the world, and you can train to be a volunteer listener. And I really learned how to listen, what we call active listening or empathic listening, and about how, particularly in difficult situations, because you can imagine that when you're listening in a suicide prevention and you have people calling who don't want to live anymore, and of course that's not all of the calls, but it is some, but people who call usually they're in distress. And I really learned the difference between what to say and how to be. And often when we have lots of things we could say to reassure or ideas, what to do. But the first important thing is really about, wait, let's connect with myself and how can I actually offer presence, which is going to be of support to the other just by who I am and how I'm being right now. And you know what I learned is that actually it's so important, if you want to learn how to listen to others, that you first start to learn how to listen to yourself. Because you can't listen to others better than you're able to listen to yourself. And I'll give you just an example. When we were training in the center, I realized that some people were more afraid to have certain calls than others. For example, for me, it was, what shall I do if somebody's called and said they've already done the necessary to stop living? But others, it was more, oh, what if somebody had abused child? Or so we all have our places where it's going to be more difficult for us to listen. And if we learn how to listen what's happening inside ourselves, we're going to open our space to listen to others. So yeah, I was very fortunate to live that experience. And since then, so since nearly 30 years, I've been dedicating my life, my work to how to make listening available to everybody. My dream, and 30 years ago, it was a illusion dream. It's that kids in school are going to learn how to listen. I realized if I could have learned how to listen when I was a kid, I would have had another childhood, another life. It would have been so different, because listening is our entry door to connecting, not just to others, but to ourselves and to life. If you think about it, we're not just listening with our ears, but we listen with all our senses. So what we're going to be sharing with you today is actually quite amazing, because I've been inspired by developing many tools to make, and approaches to make listening accessible. And the creative silence is actually it's come out not that long ago. And but I won't say more. I'll let Clementine now say a few words about yourself also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, this is very touching to hear you talk, Mark, because it really connects me to what happened for me and what made me come to such a feeling of I need to listen to myself. And it really comes back to school on my side. As Benedetta introduced me, thank you, Benedetta. She said that I'm learning science of education in Geneva, actually. And I think I went studying science of education because in my own path, I've had quite a lot of struggle at schools. I was a very, how could I say that? I'm a very good kid and like having the perfect notes and having very good grades and all that. But I was feeling very insecure. I was feeling unconfident. I was having a lot of anxiety. And yeah, I came to a point where I asked myself, I've learned so much with school about, you know, like French and math and all of that. But what about dealing with my emotion? What about dealing with relationships? And it really became clear to me that there was really something missing into the educational system, which was really about self-inquiry, discovering about yourself and, you know, understanding your emotion and managing to deal with them, accept them, explore them. And so this has been really something that actually made me meet with you, Mark, because when I finished high school, I felt, okay, I don't want to go directly to university. I want to be learning about myself, and I want to explore that, you know, that all these notions around listening to yourself, around self-discovery. And that's how I started 5 years ago working with Mark as a youth ambassador of Education for Peace. And after that, 2 years after, I started learning about science of education in university. But yeah, for me, what I feel right now, if I connect to that notion of listening, is really that capacity, which helps me so much in my life, in my relationships, of observing yourself, finding that distance where you can see your thoughts, your own reactions, and where I can see my emotions, my needs. And for me, it's a tool, and it's not even a tool, it's just like something that's, yeah, you can practice, that is really helping me connecting with myself, actually. And for me, exploring myself, understanding how I work, my own reaction, my own emotions is just like a life gift, because it really helps dealing with life. And so that I really associate listening to observing. And yeah, and silence is something very new to me. Like, I've started being more silenced the 5 last year, thanks to Mark, I would say, because you really taught me how to listen to. But I feel like silence is also real, as you said, Mark, an entrance to connecting to yourself and others. And I'm very chatty, so at the beginning, silence was a bit uncomfortable to me. But the more I try to get comfortable with it, the more I feel a connection with myself as a whole, not only the head and the thoughts, but also the emotion and also the body, something really more, feeling more grounded into myself. So yeah, this is it for my, yeah, explanation and presentation, and I will pass it on to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Clementine. It's always a pleasure to hear your journey and to be doing all this work we've been doing together for nearly 5 years now. And yeah, thank you. I want to maybe share a couple of things. And it's true that the notion of silence, well, first, maybe, you know, when I started in this space nearly 30 years ago, as I said, it was very much surrounded by psychology. We were very much in a world of understanding things, explaining things, working with quite a lot of our rational minds, the right side, right, and the left, and what listening is really about, it's really entering another space where, as Clementine was saying, it's more about moving from analyzing to observing, which is very different. And I'll mention a poem, and maybe some of you probably know Rumi, who's amazing, beautiful Sufi poet. And the beginning of one of his poems, which for me is my favorite, he says the following. He says, "Beyond ideas of right doing or wrongdoing, there's a field, and I will meet you there. And that expresses, I find so beautifully, what we're going to be exploring together in this silent, creative silence, but also that there is a space where we can listen without trying to rationally understand things, but we can be present, see how it touches us, because we are touched when we hear things. And as Clementine was saying, learning how to make the difference between what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling, which is about me, and trying to put that aside and start to develop another space, a new space, which is beyond what I think or how I feel. And of course, those of you, and I imagine that many of you, if you're in this webinar today, have been curious about meditation, or maybe you're practicing a lot of meditation. So you know that meditation is actually a practice to calm our minds, to start looking at our thoughts and opinions and emotions as clouds that go by, and realizing there is a space beyond that. And I think that's such a, today more than ever, I think as human beings, it's important that we develop this space, because that's where we connect with love, where we connect to wisdom, to opening our hearts and listening. And I really feel that today there's something very special happening in the world. We're all, wherever we are in the world, of course, going through this amazing time of the pandemic. And it's also showing, it's such a revelation of where we are as human beings in 2020. How are we living? How are we consuming? How are we living our lives? How are we connecting together? And I truly believe that the state of the planet in terms of ecology is simply a reflection, a mirror of how we are living our relationships. If we were living more love with ourselves and with each other, our planet we'd be offering the same relationship to our planet and would be taking care of her. So it's essential that we learn how to take care of ourselves and others. And this is what we're looking so forward with Clementine to share with you. So I think we're ready to start the experience, but maybe the first thing we're going to do before letting all our friends in is the Menti-Mentor. Do you want to mention Clementine?
Yeah, so we have a question on Menti-Mentor for you before having, as Mark said, friends who are going to be invited. This is a little surprise. So the experience we are going to do is going to be with people around, and of course you at home will be invited to explore and experience it with us. And so we have a question for you around listening. I think the Menti-Mentor is just shared there. Huh?
Yeah, I guess is the question. There we are. It's up.
Yes. Okay, great. So you might be able to see, how do you feel when you are really listened to? So with Mark, we just shared how, yeah, the notion of silence, what it brings to us. And maybe you have all experiments also, yeah, feeling differently when you feel listened to by someone, or when you don't feel listened to.
So accepted, loved, appreciated, important, seen, grateful, light, understanding, wonderful. Yeah, loved is coming up highly. Yeah. So we're really seeing how being really listened to is so nourishing. I think it's one of our biggest needs as human beings, and of being listened and accepted. It's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm really touched by the word seen, because there's really something about feeling seen. It's just not just physically. It really speaks to me about the notion of feeling seen in what you are, in what you feel, and accepted with how you are.
Yeah. Fantastic. Appreciated,
Beautiful.
comforted. All these values I mean, when we see this, we can probably so easily all accept wow, let's put some energy in learning how to listen how to learn. And you know, while I want to share something with you, which is so important, it's to understand that once we decide that we want to learn how to listen, the beautiful thing is it's a life journey. There's no moment when you can say, I made it. I know how to listen now. You can be sure that if you say that, life is going to catch you up. So it's really something that to nourish during all our life, to learn how to listen.
And if I may add, Mark, I feel, yeah, I imagine also how much, in my experience, depending on who you listen to, then you will have different reactions. So it's always also an opportunity to listen to your own self and explore yourself, because when someone says something, depending on what he's saying, depending on the note, what the thematic he's talking about, it can go and touch things that actually belongs to you, and it's also an opportunity to go and listen to yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Clementine. Listening to others is always a mirror for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, you know, somebody may say something and Clementine may respond or react totally differently than me and all of us. So it's really about our interconnection. So shall we?
Yeah, I think we can slowly close that Menti. Thank you so much for participating. Yeah. And yes, we can connect with our friends and guests.
So we'll ask them to open up their videos so we can see them. There we are. Ta-da! Hi, good to see you all. There we are. Wonderful. Hi. So how about maybe we could just do something for for all the people who are joining us that we don't see, and it's amazing. We're hundreds. We're over 1,000 today connected. That's so fantastic. Maybe it would be nice for everybody if we could just, indeed, when we're not talking, it's good that we mute. But maybe you could each just unmute yourself and say your name and where you're from and which part of the world you are.
Okay, I'm Annalisa. I'm in Stockholm in Sweden.
I'm Brun and I'm from Switzerland.
Hello, I'm Harihar and I'm from India, but right now I'm in Barcelona.
Hi, I'm Lavanya. I'm from Birmingham, UK, but originally from India.
Hi, I'm Vedo. I'm from India, but currently living in London, UK.
Hello, I'm Sharanya, and I'm currently living close to London.
Hello, I'm Benedetta, and I'm from Italy, but I'm living in Morocco.
Okay, anybody else want to present themselves? We didn't say actually, Clementine, where we are. So I'm English, I'm born in England, but living most of my life in Switzerland. I'm actually currently in Switzerland.
And I'm also from Switzerland, but currently in south of France, getting prepared for vacation.
Okay. So Mansour, do you want to just say where you're from?
Yeah, I'm Mansour. Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Mansour. I'm from France. I live in Paris. I'm in Paris right now. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Wonderful. So we're going to, well, thank you for accepting to be with us and for your courage to come into this experience. And what we'd like to do is we would like this to be an experience where we're going to be living it together, but I'm thinking again of all the people who are looking today. And I'd like to tell everybody who's not here but are listening and looking that you can actually also live this experience. So beyond observing is that you can actually, if you have a pen and a paper, if you want, you can write down whatever you would say. But this will become more precise when I explain what we're going to be going through. So what we're going to be sharing with you with Clementine, we've called it the creative silence. So it's a space of creative silence. When we live silence with ourselves, with others, what we usually do is we take a dedicated time. We say, like, we always start our meetings with a minute of silence, and we always finish our meetings with a minute of silence, because silence really brings us to our inner peace, or not. Our attitude, the way we are with silence, says a lot about how we are in terms of our being. And if we're in an uncomfortable place, usually we're not going to be comfortable in silence. So it's a beautiful space to learn about ourselves and learn how to nurture our inner peace through silence, which is why meditation and mindfulness is so much also about going into silence. So this is going to be a creative silence. So what does creative silence means? What it means is that we're going to go through a time of silence, which will probably be a bit more than 10 minutes. And you're going to be able to actually interrupt the silence if you want. The best way to explain this is the following. Imagine that you're going to have some time cooking with your friends and putting the music you love together, right? And so those who maybe haven't done that through cooking, maybe you've done it through other experiences, but something where you're with a friend or your partner or a member of a family, and you're just doing something you love, and you have this background, this music in the background. And what happens is that when we're not talking to each other, we connect to the music, and there's this atmosphere behind us, and we're just listening to it. And suddenly somebody says something. Oh, and we go back to what we're doing. Then say something else and we go back. So we're going to do that together, but our favorite music is going to be silence. So that means that when we are not talking together and we're in silence, that's fine. It's our home. And we don't, so this is the first, there's 3 golden rules we're going to present to you. The first one is you don't have to say anything. If you don't want to say anything during the 10 minutes, don't say anything. And if you do, share whatever you want to share. And that's the second golden rule. What you're going to share doesn't have to be connected to what the one before said. When we're in meetings or together, the way conversations go is that we usually say something which is connected to what the others say. We're trying to make sense and to be coherent and with our logic. Here you can put that aside. You remember the Rumi's field. Put this aside. Each one of us is going to only express what we want to express and whatever comes to our mind or to our heart. And the third and last golden rule is just make sure that when you decide to talk, if you do, that you leave 1 or 2 seconds before the one before talked. So if you're going to talk straight away after somebody, just leave 1 or 2 seconds. And this is to inspire the pace. Because the beautiful thing is that this is a wonderful practice to bring a different pace in our way of listening, of being, of talking. And actually, if you take the word pace and add an E in front of the P, we get peace. And actually taking care of the pace really brings peace. So Clementine, would you like to add anything before we go into the exercise? You're gonna guide us in the exercise. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think it was all said, and I will lead you with pleasure just to a few seconds of grounding and connecting to the self, so that when you leave the experience, you're really connected to whatever comes and pops up in the heart or the mind. And as Mark said, you just feel free if you feel like sharing, or if you don't. That's the space of the creative silence.
Thanks, Clementine. So just before, we just want to make sure that you are all comfortable, that you've understood what we're going to be doing together. And if any one of you didn't, just lift your hand up. And if I don't see any hands up, we don't, that's great. So it must have been very clear then. So as Clementine said, if whatever you want to share, if you want to share, it can be anything. Clementine, let's go for it. Oh, sorry, excuse me. One last thing. 1 minute before the end, maybe let's make it 1.5 minutes. I will let you know so that if there was something you were waiting, you know that you'll have another 1.5 minutes to share if you want. Now I'll shut up.
Okay, so I will invite you all, and also all the person that are not seen on the screen, that are just with us on Facebook, on YouTube. I will invite all of you to close your eyes slowly. And slowly you will take the time as you exhale to feel the connection you have with the ground. So you might be seated, you might feel probably the feet on the ground, depending on how you're seated. You just take the time to just feel the ground and the gravity. Then when you will inhale, you will just connect with the bottom of your spine and just feel the expansion going from the bottom of the spine and going upwards to the top of your head. And you exhale and you go back to the ground. You feel the connection to the ground. You can actually even feel roots going down in the earth. And each inhale, you feel the connection with the bottom of the spine, and you feel just the energy going upwards on the spine and going up to the top of your head. Then another time, you exhale and you feel the gravity. You feel grounded, connected to your body, feeling present to yourself, feeling the connection with the earth. And you inhale, you will feel the expansion, the energy going upwards on the spine. Then a final exhale, and you feel again that connection and gravity, just sensation of being in your body, being there. And we will just start entering that space of creative silence, allowing silence to be the background music. Just wanted to share how amazed I am about how you can really sometimes feel emotion physically in your body. And I just feel, when being surrounded by that silence, I really feel physically somewhere in my body excitement, joy, and happiness. And yeah, just feeling very grateful to be connected with that feeling, physical and emotional.
like to share that I'm feeling very connected with all of you, and actually I'm actually feeling the presence of all those that we're not seeing. I can sense that there's yeah, the intensity of attention of being together, and I love this space of silence, which is kind of where we can meet beyond all our beliefs, beyond our religions. It's like it's a family place.
I would like to share something. I feel that the space of the silence is very protective. It feels like a very large bubble in which I am safe. And even though I hear noises from my neighbors, for example, at the moment, it feels like they are trying to hammer and break through the bubble, but it's not possible because the peace and silent bubble is very, very strong and safe.
And I'm feeling the need to take time off and drift away from the worldly responsibilities and take time to myself and understand what's going on inside of me, the need to feel responsible for my own well-being more than the responsibility of duties, like you'd say.
What I feel I love about this experience and the rules also is the fact that there are no expectation of nothing, and it just feels so nice not to feel, like any pressure about anything. You can just be exactly as you are. And that notion of no expectation brings such a feeling of lightness to me.
I'd like to share how I'm feeling. I was deeply moved when Clementine was asking us to do the inhalation and exhalation and connect to ourselves. And the feeling that I got at that moment was, I felt deeply accepted, and I felt like I was with my people. And it also reminded me of a conversation that I had with my friends this morning, where we were talking about how we feel at home with each other. It reminded me of that conversation, and there too I felt accepted just the way I feel now here.
I feel that I love to be like this, with eyes closed and just feeling this current of love and peace that is circulating inside my system.
I would like to share something. So I felt that, we have taken it for granted that the world is like a very noisy place and only occasionally we have silence. Whereas now I was feeling like the silence is always there and it's the noise that is sometimes occasional, but we're just not able to tune into that silence. So now it feels like I'm almost reaching a familiar place which feels safe and peaceful.
Just to let you know that we have another little 2 minutes.
I would like to share something. As I just shut my eyes, I can feel a flow in my body, which is in line with my inhalation. And as Clementine said, when you inhale, you feel a flow pulling you upwards, and exhale to the ground. I can feel that flow within me. And it's a very nurturing feeling.
I also just wanted to share about the quality of the silence, because where I am, it's not an outward silence. I'm hearing a lot of things, but then through this experience, I feel like the silence is actually growing in me, and I'm letting space in myself for silence. So I can connect to what you said, Vito, about silence being all around. I think silence is inside of us also, and we can let the space for it to grow.
Thank you. It's always difficult for me to close a space like this, because I could personally stay like this with you a long time. And actually, usually these times are longer, but because of what we're experiencing, we only have a few more minutes. So I want to really thank you deeply for everything you shared. And before we listen to you with Clementine, there's another Mentimeter, I think, huh? Well,
we wanted to invite also the whole audience to, now that you've been experiencing also that creative silence, and that we've been exploring that notion of silence, we wanted to invite you to share what emotion are related to that notion of silence. Because as you said, Mark, sometimes it can also be uncomfortable. As I also shared in my experience, sometimes it has been, as I'm very chatty, I thought, oh my God, when it's silence, I don't know what to do. And actually there's nothing to do. And it's something, a practice, and you can, be more and more comfortable with it. But we wanted to explore what emotion you would relate with silence. So we invite all the audience to participate.
so while I guess the question is going to be coming up on the Menti.
I see that, yeah.
And so while it comes up, and while we see how all of you feel there, what emotion describes the way you feel when you are in silence? We'd love to hear that from all of you. And relaxing, and maybe fulfilling, calm. Heartbeats, peace, wonderful, pure, safe, relaxing. So, Clementine, you know, I'm realizing we only have 3 more minutes, and I know we want to share as a gift to everybody a little text with you, a little poem. So maybe just before we could ask, we have just a minute or two, if one of you and the participants here, while we're seeing everybody what's coming out, would anybody want to share anything while we're seeing the Mentimeter?
Yeah, I would like to say that as you can see in the Mentimeter, it's very clear that peace, calm, and happy are one of the most important things, and one of the most important emotions that people relate to in silence. And also, you can see that there is safe somewhere floating around. So, as you can, I mean, the point I wanted to make was about how these few emotions are interrelated amongst each other. The more calmer you are, the more peaceful you feel. The more peaceful you feel, the more happier you are, and the more happier you feel safe in your own space, you feel safe with what you have, and you don't feel the need, like at times when you, like in this generation, like as a commit, like you would like to say, there are many people who fear they have a fear of not being accepted. They have a fear of, like the millennials call it FOMO, the fun of missing out on many things. So they just have I don't know how do you say it, like they feel disrespected at times if people don't accept them into groups, if people don't agree with what they have to say about their opinions and etc. So safe is still a very powerful emotion that needs to be, I would personally feel more safer because I have myself to talk to constantly throughout the time when we were silent and my eyes was closed. I was having a dialogue with myself. I was talking to myself. I was putting myself in scenarios, having conversations, and still it somehow felt really peaceful because in this kind of scenario, you're exactly hearing what you want and you're saying what you want. So there's no way that you're feeling anything negative. It's always positive.
Thank you very much, Harry. This is very mindful and heartful and a beautiful way to close because it's already 3, so we finished, and I could go on for, yeah, I'd love to continue, but we'd like to finish with Clementine with a text with you. So thanking you so much, those who are here on the screen, but all of you who have simply been with us. And shall we go, Clementine, to close?
Yeah, I think maybe we can just close the Menti. Thank you so much for those who participated. All the words you said is really, they really echoes. And yeah, I think we could totally finish. Thank you again, everyone.
So here it goes. So this is a poem by Steve Taylor, a poet we really appreciate. When you find yourself wondering how you're going to pass the time, and you scramble for arrangements to fill the uneasy emptiness.
When you find yourself wishing you were someone else, and stare enviously at the pages of the magazines, wishing for better or more.
When you catch yourself feeling that something's not quite right, but can't pin down what it is, and solitude feels unnerving, as if the room were filled with restless ghosts.
When you catch your mind clinging to future dreams, looking forward to holidays a little too much, and you feel hungry for noise and activity to immerse yourself in and forget.
It's only a sign that you've lost yourself, that there's a fog of worries and responsibilities whirling through your mind, standing between you and the warmth and light and spacious radiance of being.
It's only a sign that you've pushed yourself so hard that you've dried up like a river in summer and can't meet up with the ocean.
You don't need to do anything.
You need to do nothing.
to lift yourself out of the noise and stress until the fog has cleared
and your being has settled to stillness.
and the connection forms itself again. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you so much.